combating small arms and light weapons have been put in place, and they thought that such programs should be useful not just for our committee, but for respective security agencies in Nigeria. And as a follow-up, we are going to be linking up with their office in Togo to start with, review what programs they have available, and see how we can key into them so that Nigeria can benefit.
Have you figured out the network of those involved in this ring of illicit activities, talking about the proliferation of small arms? Have you been able to figure out their ring, the ring of the network?
We are looking at it in concert with relevant security agencies. You know, unfortunately, most of our findings cannot be discussed on national television like yours because there are things that are ongoing and security agencies are following up. And if we were to begin to discuss the details of our findings or what we have so far, we invariably will compromise the entire situation, and I'm sure that the security agencies will not like that. But I want to assure you that although our committee is young, and although the issue or the problem posed by small arms and light weapons are enormous, however, I want to assure you that working in concert with relevant security agencies, that we believe it is something that we will find a solution to. It might take a little while, but we will find a solution to them.
I also believe that now you said you're leading the federal government's campaign against proliferation of small arms and light weapons. This is seen by many as a deadly affair. Do you sometimes get daunted with this task?
I don't look at it that way. Every member of my committee sees this as a national duty, national assignment. We all know that the problem is so enormous and deserves our intervention. And by the way, you look at the composition of the Presidential Committee on Small Arms and Light Weapons. Every security agency is represented: the military, the police, State Security Service, National Intelligence Agency, Customs, Immigration. Everybody has civil defense. Everybody has representative on our panel. Some have 2, 3 representatives on our panel, on our committee. So it's a situation in which every security agency is putting hands on deck on this matter. The goodwill that the committee has extends beyond the security agencies. Governmental organizations, ministries of government, and I'm talking about the ministries of Foreign Affairs, Internal Affairs, Attorney General's Office, Office of the SGF, and the National Security Advisor's Office also have representatives on our panel.
Now, when we look at the aspect, the interest of these merchants of war, the signal points to the West. So have you been able to raise this with them in terms of curbing the aspect of the manufacturing, which you said was a critical aspect that was discussed at the UN Disarmament Office?
It is being raised. And by the way, to correct an impression, there are local manufacturers, and they are refining their art every day.
But
not just in Nigeria.
A rocket-propelled grenade,
yes,
is not possibly manufactured here in Nigeria.
Perhaps not, but we're talking about other categories of small arms and light weapons.
So these are the reasons why people feel that instinctively, as a matter of sense of logic, that these could be traced to the West.
Oh yes, we have pointed it out. We have. The first thing we did when we came into being was to make a very comprehensive initial survey, initial assessment rather, of the small arms and light weapons proliferation, the situation of small arms and light weapons in Nigeria. And all these were pointed out. I think that one should not generalize these issues, but I would like to suggest that one of the reasons that has made the United Nations to go beyond the UN Program of Action and into the Arms Trade Treaty, ATT, is because of this same problem you have raised. Big timers and big countries are producing and trading weapons without recourse to anybody, thus constituting security problems in many countries. One of the main objectives of the Arms Trade Treaty, the main thrust of the Arms Trade Treaty is to regulate the trade in firearms from a supply point of view as well as a demand point of view from both ends of the spectrum. That is what the ATT has. The Arms Trade Treaty has been signed by so many countries. The Arms Trade Treaty is now being ratified by so many countries. And I think that the treaty requires some 50 or so ratifications to come into force. Once that is done, then automatically, once that number is reached or achieved, automatically it comes into force. Nigeria has ratified the treaty.
Since the inauguration of your committee, and sometimes in April now to this point, we want to believe that you're giving us an account of stewardship of about 5 months till now. Could you tell us, when do you think the proliferation of small arms in Nigeria is likely to be wiped away, or at least to be a thing of the past or greatly reduced?
I'll tell you this. You know, the fight against proliferation of small arms and light weapons, as I mentioned earlier, is being undertaken at a global setting. However, whatever instruments or legislations derived from the international community must also be domesticated to ensure that locally that many people in the country come on board such legislations. I mentioned at the very beginning, the very outset of this interview, that our committee has been set up to assist government to implement the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons. So many other countries in West Africa are already implementing this, and we too are coming on board this implementation process. But it takes time to implement this process. You need to put together a lot of infrastructure in order to implement it fully. And I mean, that is one of the reasons we have been set up, to ensure that these processes and procedures that are envisaged within the spirit and letter of the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons are also put in place by Nigeria. Let me also say that when you look at all the countries in West Africa and the problem posed by proliferation of small arms and light weapons, you'll find out one thing, that initially Nigeria was a major transit point for many of these weapons. But I want to believe that now that Nigeria is a major destination of these weapons for the reason of our very peculiar demographic factors, demographic endowments.
Could you shed more light on the demographic endowments?
I'm talking about our population. You have more number of people carrying weapons in Nigeria than the number of people carrying weapons in Ghana. You have more weapon carriers in Nigeria than you have in Benin Republic. And that's what I mean by demographic endowments.
We have information that the large cache of arms from the Libyan crisis had fallen into the hands of terrorist group. What have you been able to make of this information?
It is probably true that a lot of weapons are coming into Nigeria at this point in time from the conflict situation in Libya. But Libya has not been the only source of weapons coming into Nigeria.